In June of 1921, Noel Coward entered New York Harbor for the first time, aboard Britain's largest ship, the SS Aquitania, Cunard's finest liner. Noel says, "New York rose out of the sea to greet us, and wads of cotton wool smoke lay motionless amongst the high towers." Noel's determination to go to America had been reborn at one of Ivor Novello's supper parties in his flat above the Strand Theatre, when he met Jean Eagles, the stunning young American actress who talked vividly of the American theatre. Geoffrey Holmesdale added an extra fillip to his desire to go by suggesting that Noel join him when he sailed to New York in May. Noel made his excuses and left the play in which he was appearing. He begged and borrowed money from friends and sold Ned Latham 2 songs that he really didn't want, and scraped together £100 for his fare. The film here was shot much later in 1931, at the height of his theatrical fame. As Noel says, "the stinging enchantment for me of this arrival." This romantic passion for New York led him to film the entire journey from the entry of the harbour past Ellis and Liberty Islands right up to the gateway of the passenger docks.
I don't care for China, Japan's far too small. I've rumbled the Rio Grande. I hate Asia Minor, I can't bear Bengal, and I shudder to think of that awful stink on the road to Samarkand. It's really hell, that dreadful smell on the road to Samarkand, but I like America.
Noel certainly liked New York, with reams of films showing New York street life, the bustle and excitement of the crowds, the rattling elevated trains, and the plethora of theatres. His first stay was at the Algonquin, where Noel claims he left after one night due to it being airless and stuffy, but it was simply too expensive. So he moved to the Brevoort at the lower end of Fifth Avenue. He adds, "New York seemed, in spite of its hardness and noisy efficiency, a great, exciting place."
In Chicago, Illinois, any girl who meets a boy.
Money was hard to come by, but friendship abounded. At Dr. Round's boarding house at 130 West 70th Street, he met up again with Lynn Fontanne, who he had known in London, where they met at dances at the Ham and Bone Club. A scraggy, friendly girl with intelligent brown eyes and a raucous laugh. There, with her new beau, Alfred Lunt, both at early stages in their careers, Lynn was preparing for her first New York role as the eponymous heroine Dulcie. It was here that the promise was made to play together when they were all famous, which they did, in Design for Living in 1933.
I've traveled far from Northumberland to Zanzibar, but I find America okay.
Noel saw Adele and Fred Astaire perform The Love Letter. I hadn't realised before then that such rhythm and taste in dancing were possible. Noel befriended them, and less than a year later, Fred choreographed Noel and Gertie's dance to Arthur Freed's song You Were Meant for Me in his first musical revue, London Calling.
Beneath each tree in Tennessee.
As Noel said, we did everything we should have done. We went up the Woolworth Building, we gaped appropriately at the majesty of the Pennsylvania and Grand Central stations, we battled our way along Wall Street during the rush hour. We went to Coney Island on a Sunday night, and we jolted and rattled and bumped at a terrific speed through the pitch-black tunnels over canvas mountains, disembarking green in the face to consume hot dogs and non-alcoholic beer. We learned to distinguish between expresses and locals in the subway. We went to Harlem and drifted from cabaret to cabaret, jigging to alien rhythms and listening to strange wailings and screechings until our feet ached Our ears buzzed and our eyes blinked in the cool dawn. After failing to connect with letters of introduction to three significant players on the Broadway scene, Lynn Fontanne introduced him to Helen Hayes. But Helen wasn't interested in either Noel or his plays. So Lynn called Frank Crowninshield, the editor of Vanity Fair, who bought Noel's satirical memoirs, A Withered Nosegay, for very little payment. But as he says, it was encouraging. After Geoffrey Holmesdale had left to go home, Noel was offered a bed at the Washington Square studio apartment of Gabrielle and Cecile, who had met him off the boat. His funds were low, and he was extremely grateful for their generosity. His weekly epistles to his mother were designed to reassure her that all was well, but they were a cocktail that was more fiction than fact. Here she is in the only movie footage we have of her in a cheeky exchange with her son. In case you're wondering where your wandering boy is wandering, the answer is anywhere and everywhere. Why did nobody tell me the streets of New York are so hot in the summer that you could fry eggs on the pavement? Sorry, sidewalk. Always supposing you had eggs.
I travel alone, fair though the places and the faces.
In these scenes, shot from the top of the Woolworth building, we can see what New York was like in the late 20s and early 30s.
I travel alone. The world is wide, and when my day is done, I shall at least have traveled free, led by this wanderlust that turns my eyes to the horizon. Though time and tide won't wait for anyone, there's one illusion left for me, and that's the happiness I've known alone.
In 1931, Noel set off with Charles Cochran and the English cast of Private Lives to set up shop at the Times Square Theatre in the first US production of the play. Most of the sea footage in this compilation was taken at that time, with Noel recording any famed personage on board.
I travel alone, fair though the places and faces I've known. When the dream is ended and passion has flown, I travel alone, free from love's illusion. My heart is my own. I travel alone.
What are you doing here?
I'm on my honeymoon.
Very interesting. So am I.
I hope you're enjoying it.
It hasn't started yet.
Neither is mine.
Are you happy?
Perfectly.
Good.
Are you?
Ecstatically.
What's she like?
Fair. Very pretty. Plays the piano beautifully.
Very comforting.
How's yours?
I'd rather not discuss it.
Oh, well, it doesn't matter. He'll probably come popping out in a minute and I shall see for myself.
Have you known her long?
About 4 months. We met on a house party in Norfolk.
Very flat, Norfolk.
There's no need to be unpleasant.
There was no reflection on her, unless, of course, she made it flatter.
Your voice takes on an acid quality every time you mention her.
I swear I'll never mention her again.
Good. Now keep off yours.
Thank you.
Not at all. That orchestra seems to have a remarkably small repertoire.
Strange how potent cheap music is.
In December 1934, Noel writes from New York to his mother. I'm going at last to do a picture here at the Paramount Studios. Ben Hecht and Charles MacArthur are writing a special story for me. It was shot in the Astoria Studios in Brooklyn, New York. The plot can be summed up in one sentence. A ruthless, cynical, hated publisher is killed in a plane crash, and his ghost must wander restlessly unless someone sheds a tear for him. The event starred most of his crowd of Manhattan and Algonquin Round Table cronies. Its most memorable dialogue was clearly the result of some rewriting by Coward himself. As legend has it, the director spent most of the time playing cards. Here is a good example.
How do you do?
Mr. Molaire.
Just exactly what I expected. Shy, odd, with the eyes of a runaway child. Well, I've read your poems, adored them, memorized 3 of them. I shall publish the book next season and would very much like to have lunch with you immediately.
You like them?
I said adored.
You're not just being nice.
I'm never nice.
Oh, you really?
Listen. I am a stranger wandering always. Only the far trees know me, and the dark sky, and the cold wind that comes to warm itself in my heart. How's that?
Dark trees. Only the dark trees know me.
I'm so sorry. Dark trees, of course.
Noel's relationship with the Lunds led to him becoming a regular visitor to their Wisconsin home at the small settlement of Genesee Depot, where they developed a collection of buildings in gently wooded hills and named it after the number of chimneys sprouting from each roof. 10 chimneys. The place where they spent 6 months of every year in what they regarded as their bucolic heaven, where Alfred farmed and cooked and Lynn was Lynn. Noel says, "They really are the most extraordinary couple. They are sweet and warm and friendly. I love and admire them both so much. Their good nature and generosity gave them the love and protection of the local people, who nearly always misdirected inquisitive seekers of the star's domain." Coward had his own distinctive bedroom. He played on the white piano in the lounge and relished the theatrical decorations and settings of the various buildings, and on at least one occasion frightened the locals with his early morning naked swims in the pool. In 1928, Alfred and Lynn made a pact to only act together as a duo. They revolutionized theatre with innovations that we now accept as commonplace: overlapping dialogue, turning their backs to the audience, passionate physical contact, and a level of truth and realism in everything they did that simply could not be found on the American stage prior to the Lunds. Here, in the only footage we have of Noel acting on stage, he's with them. They're being filmed at the dress rehearsal of the play, either at the pre-Broadway run at Cleveland or at the Ethel Barrymore Theatre in New York. Noel wrote to his mother, "Rehearsals are going marvellously. Lynn and Alfred are simply superb, and I think we are going to give the best acting in the world to the great American public. It is bliss working with them. They're so utterly sure and concentrated on what they're doing. There's no work for me at all, except to try to be good in my own part." On January the 4th, Design for Living opened at the Ethel Barrymore and was an immediate hit, so much so that Noel agreed to play 5 months instead of his stipulated 3. For its time, the play was ambiguously daring. Noel played Leo, a playwright in love with Gilda, who lives with Otto, an artist, who is also in love with Gilda. She, in turn, is in love with both of them. The permutations of this ménage à trois make up the plot. By the end of the play, each of them has come to accept that they cannot live without the other two. Lynn, as Gilda, makes a cry from the heart that seems to sum up the exhaustion she feels at the intensity of the emotional relationship she has with the two men. The human race is a letdown. It thinks it's progressed, but it hasn't. It thinks it's risen above the primeval slime, but it hasn't. It's still wallowing in it. We've invented a few small things that make noises, but we haven't invented one thing that creates quiet, endless, peaceful quiet. Something to pull over our heads like a gigantic eiderdown. something to deaden the sound of our emotional yellings and screechings.
For I'll take the high road and you take
After a series of cabaret seasons at London's Café de Paris with his wartime accompanist Norman Hackforth, Noel received an offer from Las Vegas that he couldn't refuse, and decided to throw his hat into the largest cabaret ring of all time at Wilbur Clark's Desert Inn. With his new accompanist and arranger Pete Matz and a full orchestra, Noel proceeded to take the desert by storm. Frank Sinatra hired a plane to take celebrities to the show and made the claim that if you wanted to see how a song should be sung, then go and see Noel Coward at Las Vegas. The stars came in their droves, and as the crockery rattled and the coffee and liqueurs were served, Noel gave it to them, producing a show and perhaps more significantly, a recording that evangelized a generation into joining the Coward religion.
In Texas, they've only got the brassest rhythm, and they like a tune with wow and zip, and it's something with some bip, yip, and it rhythm has them rolling on the floor. They first heard some blue notes, somebody played a few notes, Texan asked for any more. How I'd love a chart of how they brought the art of bebop to the heart of Texas. Bebop, mambo, samba, conga too. Day by day the urge is stronger to give those guys who don't like fun around one big Texan rhythmic run around. Give them something to collapse about when those cowboys flap their chaps about deep, 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 deep in the sleepy heart of Texas. Night is over, dawn is breaking. Everywhere the town is waking.
Towards the end of the war, Noel made his first visit to Jamaica and started a pattern of retreat that he reaffirmed in 1948 when he stayed for 3 months at Ian Fleming's Jamaican home, Goldeneye. His stay was made permanent when he later purchased some land and had Blue Harbour built as a home come guest house, where everyone from show business celebrities to royalty joined the party. With an ever-growing guest list, he felt his need to retreat threatened, and he eventually built the single-bedroom dwelling, Firefly, high on the hill above Blue Harbour, where he worked overlooking the Spanish Main, slept amidst the firefly glow, and eventually sadly died in 1973.
The starlight leaves the sky. It's time for little girls and boys to hurry home to bed. For there's a new day waiting just ahead. Life is sweet, but time is fleet beneath the magic of the moon. Dancing time may seem sublime, but it is ended all too soon. The thrill has gone, to linger on would spoil it anyhow. Let's creep away from the day, for the party's all